The gods forgot the secret of steel and left it on the battlefield. And we who found it are just men. Not gods, not giants. Just men.
All right. I have got Alf Arteaga from 3 yards per carry. He's my man. He's a great guy. We were talking so much cool stuff in the background. I wish you guys could have heard some of it. I just learned a ton. Alf gets around the team. He knows the inside scoop. He does amazing stuff. So we're going to talk a little Dolphins here because that's what we want to do. I just want to give you Alf and I had recorded something a couple months back, and I screwed up the text side and got eaten in that. So we're not going to do that here today, Alf. We're going to have a great time. So look, this was a big letdown for a lot of people, a lot of Finn fans. We're in this very precarious time here with uncertainty with Greer and Ross and McDaniel and the direction of the team. So what if you were to pull it all together? No hopium, just straight shooting. What's your take on the current situation, and where do you see us heading? What is this going to amount to?
Well, right now it's tenuous. They've had 3 years of this build, and you can honestly say that they underachieved 2 of the 3 years. You know, a lot of people don't care about win totals. I actually do. So when Las Vegas says 9.5, I take it as the gospel, which means beat 9.5. Yeah. And if you beat 9.5, I'll listen to your excuses. You know, like I'll allow you to tell me this went wrong and that other thing went wrong and the other thing went wrong. But hey, we won 10 and we were at 9.5. But don't win 9 and don't win 8. Okay. Yeah. When you're at 9.5, because then I don't want to listen to a lot of your excuses. Like, I don't know, a meteor had to have hit your training facility to give me an excuse that I care about. But it's a talented roster. It's a good roster. But like I explained the other day, this is a hamburger with no cheese and no lettuce and no tomatoes.
No pickles. No
pickles. There's no mustard on there either. Nothing. There's no special sauce. No. It's just a bun with some meat. Okay? So a bun and meat, that could be a good thing. But it's missing things, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of like the nucleus, but the nucleus is not enough. There's teams out there with a look. Cincinnati has a pretty damn good nucleus on offense.
Oh yeah.
You know, they didn't make the playoffs either. Okay, there's several teams. Look, the 49ers are much more talented than the Dolphins.
Oh yeah.
And they were an absolute disaster this year. Okay. Seattle is right there with the Dolphins with a pretty nice little nucleus, right? They didn't make the playoffs either. So there's many teams that are in the same boat as Miami. It's going to take a pretty good offseason. You know, not that you got to hit an inside straight, but you're going to have to hit on a few things. You're going to have to expand what you do on offense. And that's going to start up front. Yeah, you're going to need guards. On defense, you're going to have to inject some youth into that defense, because I really hate to do this, because I like to look at the body of work and say that was the body of work, but there's some fool's gold there on the defense.
Who would you say is the fool's gold?
I think that schedule was the fool's gold. Go back and look at the better teams that they played. Like, look, you can hang your hat on against the Rams. Like, that's a legit great defensive effort. Okay, but you played poorly against the Bills. Your offense played well. Your offense played great against the Bills. They scored on every single drive in the second half. Okay? They scored 3 touchdowns in the second half. So they were fine against the Bills. The defense was not. Okay? The defense was terrible against the Cardinals. When you play some of the better offenses, you were pretty bad. So, you know, as far as who was fool's gold, it's more of a unit thing. I think that they lack depth. They lack some players. And will it be enough that you get Phillips and Chubb back? Yeah, but that's enough to help up front considerably. But you need help. You need a defensive tackle. You need a linebacker. You need at least 2 defensive backs. You need depth all around. So
speaking of linebacker, man, you did a great job with your eval on Brooks. I liked a lot of stuff. I was a little concerned about his attack stack and shedding, but you loved him. You really made me keep my eye locked on him, and he had a phenomenal season. I still think he's a little bit more of a Will than a Mike, but I loved when he came out and called us soft. I loved that. That showed real leadership outside the game as well as inside.
Yeah, no, he's a guy you could count on. Like, he's one of those guys that you don't worry about. Like,
Nope.
is he in uniform? Is he active today? We're good there, you know?
Yeah.
And they need more of those guys, okay? They need more of those guys that you can rely on, that are going to play well. They're going to be in their spots. Yeah, I thought he had a great season. I thought he had a great season. I thought he's actually improved as a pro since coming out of Texas Tech. I wanted to draft him in the first round. I wanted to use Noah Monogany's pick, by the way, okay, to take him. So that didn't work out. But ever since then, he's improved. Seattle played him almost exclusively as a Mike early on in his career. But you could see that his skill really translates to playing outside, playing as a scrape.
Yeah.
And his last season in Seattle, when you see him playing as a scrape linebacker, you realize, okay, like, this is a guy who's really versatile. Like, this is a guy that can play. I think that he needs a running partner. I like Dodson, but I like Dodson as a piece, as a depth piece. If you're replacing Duke Riley with Anthony Walker, and then Dodson, you're replacing Anthony Walker with Dodson, you add another guy, you might have something.
It's so hard to find linebackers these days, though. It's so hard. It's so hard. I think they did a great job with Dotson and Brooks. But
there's a lot of specialists. The problems with linebackers nowadays is that there's too many specialists.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Like you could, and I've said this to people before, because everybody's, Landon Roberts. Yeah, he was a great player. But Landon Roberts was a fill linebacker.
Yeah.
You know where you can find a fill linebacker? On the street, whenever you want. You know, put in a call to Calvin Munson. And Calvin Munson can run the A and the B gap. He can run the A and the B gap. You give him that responsibility to run A, B gap. That's it. Just read A or B gap all game. He's going to get you 9 tackles, and he's going to help you stop the run. Yeah. The key is to find a guy that can do that, and then also drop in Tampa too. That can also play the flat, that can blitz. You start adding tools to that skill set. I don't think. Look, Landon Roberts is a really nice player, but the Steelers are paying him $3.5 million to run the A and the B gap and to blitz. Nah, I don't want to do that with a linebacker. I want a guy who can do a little bit more. You know?
It's hard to find him. It's really hard to find guys to play.
There's not many of them.
No. That's a guy, Wagner from we were supposed to get from the 49ers. He's unbelievable.
Fred Warner.
Yeah, Warner. It's so rare these days. So, all right. So we got the core. I'm kind of concerned because I think there's a lot of stuff to fill. I think, for me, my holes are, we don't know if Tyreek's coming back, but tight end, we need a guy to work with John he doesn't have to be great, but a little blocking, a little bit catching. Smythe.
I think they need a new room.
Yeah, Smythe's got to go.
At the end of that room, Hayden Rucci is your tight end 4. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he has good tape from camp last year, and he's physical. And when you're physical and nasty, that's good enough for me for a tight end 4, Do
you think Julian Hill comes back? And if he does, do you think he's got a future?
He has a lot of promise. His play did not translate to the promise that he showed in training camp. Those penalties are killers, man. Those penalties are killers. And you can't turn over the ball when you're a guy who is getting maybe a touch a game. You get 20 to 30 touches a year and you're turning over the ball. You can't do that.
And he's a little inconsistent with his technique. I mean, he'll have a nice block, then an ugly block. Sometimes he doesn't see a guy. The tight end, I really do believe the NFL has kind of moved to pass balance. You got to control those A and B gaps at least some of the time. So tight end's a big piece, but you don't see us taking like a Warren at 13, do you? I think that's a little too high.
I love it if you get off of Tyreek, right? You could reasonably expect to play a lot of 12 personnel with Warren and Jonnu, and I don't think you're going to miss much of a beat, man, because Tyler Warren's a guy who 6'6", 260. He's going to run in the 4.5s. So he's going to give you an element down the seams that's going to occupy safeties. He can block. I know some people are like, so he takes time off sometimes from blocking. Man, I really don't see that in the film. Now, does he miss a block every once in a while? Yeah, sure. So does George Kittle.
Yeah.
Watch George Kittle against Miami. He didn't play a great game against Miami, although he had a bunch of counting stats. Yeah, I think he had 100 yards receiving against Miami.
I think so. Close.
If I'm right. So yeah, he played really well, but he missed some blocks. Watch Tyler Warren in the run game, man. He's tough. And
yeah, I haven't studied him out. I want to. Originally that's where I wanted us to go with 13, and then I just kept saying, look, DI is another big defensive tackle is a big piece for me too. Offensive line.
The problem is, I think that the big prize for a defensive tackle won't make it to 13.
Yeah.
You know, but there's
I actually hope we trade back.
We had a pretty good debate today on the podcast, and we're kind of seeing eye to eye. Me and Simon. Simon's he's like our draft specialist. He's great. Like, he's been watching these guys all year, and he's like, look, man, you just cannot. You get an opportunity to pick 13th, and you have an opportunity to take a special player. You're just gonna have to do it, you know. And a guy that we talked about, look, they play a lot of 22 personnel on this team. If Ashton Jeanty is there at 13, how can you in good conscience pass up that guy? You know, this is a team and a scheme that relies on its running backs.
Oh, he's a stud.
And yeah, he's a superstar. I got a stat for you. Do you know how many yards he averages after contact?
No.
That season?
But you're going to tell me, though.
He averages 5.5 yards after contact. Okay, this past season. All right. To give you an idea, Ricky Williams' 1,800-yard season, he averaged 3.1 yards after contact. Wow. Okay.
I know. Right? I tell you, To me, he really has that electric, special, old-time talent. He's a little bit of the breakaway speed, a little bit, but everything else is so special.
And I understand some fans are like, oh, but what's happening with Devon Achane? Well, first of all, Mike McDaniel plays both of them. Okay, he'll play both of them together because he plays two running backs a lot. Okay, he plays a lot of 22 personnel. He plays some 20 personnel as well. Okay, so that's something that's in the playbook to play two guys together. And second of all, have you seen Achane run routes? There's your Tyreek replacement. Okay, he'll give you some speed on the outside. He can flank out wide. He'll give you an opportunity to play a lot of those 21 personnel sets with Ingold that you like to play with. In this case, it'll be, I don't know what, you're gonna have three running backs on the field, but he's essentially kind of like a wide receiver.
Yeah.
You know, Achane will allow you to do a lot of those things. And that's the beauty of having somebody like Achane. And if you have two of them together, both of them are receiving threats. And you know, if you have five eligibles. If you have five eligibles and two of them are Ashton Jeanty and Devon Achane, man, you're really stressing a defense. You really are stressing a defense.
The only caveat, because I would love Jeanty. I really was so impressed watching the film. My man Tommy at Mafia Sports was, you gotta watch this guy. And I was really taken back. But you got right for 2-4. You got Achane. You would have Jeanty. If you don't have the blocking, how do you acquire all the physicality you need to support that? Because just, running backs, no matter who they are, unless you're like Barry Sanders, but then there's just the inconsistency. You need the blocking up front. And for me, that's not even just the offensive line. It's that, like, as you said before with Warren, the tight ends. And so you got 13 and 45, and then you don't go to the conditional third. And I went over in my last podcast, or one of them, how we have been horrific mid-rounds acquiring talent, especially the offensive line. How can you – so, I mean, you could grab a guard. There's some good guards, as I want to think, from Alabama and maybe another one. I'm going over it now in the second round. So you could get maybe Jeanty in a guard, a nice guard in that second round. But I think you need more than that. I mean, I don't want – some people are saying draft all your picks for – I don't think that. But can you see a scenario where you get Jeanty and then still fill out your blocking needs if we're about winning this season?
I think they're going to have to be pretty smart with their free agent dollars. And, man, they got to move off of that Tyreek deal. They just got to move off of that Tyreek deal.
And Tyreek. And his deal.
Yeah, have somebody take that money. And if somebody could get that money off of your books, that's going to open up your offseason. Okay. And you got to be smart in free agency. Personally, I want my guards a little bit more experience, especially for this scheme and especially with our quarterback. You know, I fear that the guy who was the perfect mix, the perfect fit for the scheme, James Daniels, now is coming off of an injury.
Big time, yeah.
Which kind of makes him perfect, right? Like that's what Greer likes, right? He likes those
he likes them a lot.
Yeah. You know, well, here's the thing. Chris Greer loves his market inefficiencies, but sometimes those market inefficiencies come back to bite you. And the market inefficiency that he likes is that you get to save on guys if they have an injury history. Yeah, but sometimes those injury histories make those guys extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Okay. So look at Teron Armstead. He's been a great player.
Oh,
but
yeah.
when they got that deal, a lot of people were saying, "Whoa, Chris Greer and Brandon Shore cornered the market here." They're getting Teron for essentially an $18 million a year APY, which would make him like the 7th or 8th highest paid tackle.
He's
like this is a bargain. You know what I mean? Problem is, if he plays 12 games, then he's the most expensive tackle in football.
That is true. That is true.
And then if you think about it, in his second and third year, you ended up paying for him and Kendall Lamb. Okay. So now the position is becoming really expensive because now you have to invest in a quality backup, right?
So let's just go over the unit, the front unit. So I love Jonnu. He broke all our records. Clearly a stud in the passing game, but he struggles to block. He's willing. So you got to fill out that tight end group, and you can find. I liked Kraft. The Packers took, and you found him in like the 4th round. You can find that. But you've got to fill that out. You got Ingold. I like Ingold. A little inconsistent at times, but I like him. You got him there. But you clearly got to move off Smythe. We talked before about Julian Hill. I'm not fond. I think there's potential, but it doesn't really matter. You know, you've got to be smart. You've got to, have the right technique. So you got to fill that unit out. And they're not cheap because the whole league wants them. I mean, this is tacking the middle of the field, being a two-way go, blocking and going. It's hard to get these guys. Mm-hmm. And then you get your offensive line. If you want, we talked again, I rehash it, but talk about Jackson. Jackson, people are high on him. I'm not so high on him. But you got this injury thing, and you're locked in. You can't get out of him this year. What's going on with Jackson? Do you see him as a piece? So keep going with that a little bit because there's some really good information you had before.
Yeah, I like him a lot, but at some point, you look at what's happened the last 3 years. He's missed a lot of games. 2 out of the last 3 years. He was healthy in 2023. Only missed 1 game with an MCL, I believe it was. This year he had the meniscus tear, and it cost him half the season. He's a good run blocker. He needs help in pass pro. He's not very good in pass pro. Like, that's a fact. Okay? But he's one of those middling tackles, slightly above average in my opinion. But in my opinion, he's really, really good scheme fit for the run game. And he really helps your run game. But you got to start looking at him a little bit more suspiciously going forward because of his availability. And now he's not such a good bargain anymore if he's going to start missing games. So you're going to have an eye toward the future and an eye toward the present as far as replacing him. So I think that they're going to have to invest somewhere. I don't think it's with free agent dollars for an older guy. I think you're probably going to have to use a draft pick somewhere on a tackle that could shuttle in from left to right as a swing tackle, possibly play guard. And if you do find a starter at guard, I think a Kelvin Banks is kind of the perfect, he's the perfect fit if he works out. It's a gamble, okay? Because, I know there's a study out there, and I don't know where it is, and I can't quote who did it, but there's a study out there that says first-round offensive tackles are the surest thing in the NFL. Like, if you take an offensive tackle in the first round, you're going to get a serviceable player. You're going to get a guy who's going to play for you. And more often than not, you're going to find stars, you're going to find a Darisaw. You're going to find a Charles Cross. They're everywhere. Larry Mutunzel.
Yeah. And at 13 pick, there's possibility these guys, I don't think they're going to be off the board. I think there's going to be a couple of them. I think a few will go. I think the Patriots might end up going with an offensive lineman. I think that's probably what they need the most. Although you never know.
Yeah, the Patriots played their way out of Travis Hunter and a bonanza. Now they're just going to stay put and take an offensive lineman.
Yeah, quarterbacks go before that, and So to me, my biggest problem is jiving the unit. We'll go right through the rest of the unit, but for me, Jackson he's physical in the sense he wants to be physical. He's good at outside movement, shielding guys. But my eval says we've got to get some inside run game, especially in the red zone. And I'm concerned. He doesn't really move people. If he gets good angles, he can. And so he is and some people talk about moving him inside. I don't see that. I don't see he's got that ability. Plus, it makes him more liable for injury. So you get, but then you got Paul, and Paul played not too shabby at right tackle. So at least you got one guy, but I think that would come back to getting Tehran back for another season. But Tehran, will he come back? Can he stay able? You're going to lose some snaps. And so if you get this tackle, it's a good chance to get him. But then once you move him inside, then it adds more complexity and more chance that it's a disaster. You can't put Paul inside. He can't get his butt down enough. Can't get that leverage, and you don't want to keep mixing and matching him because I think he could be a piece of the future. Jackson, you can't move inside. So it's a conundrum because you really want them to take tackle, but then have all these pieces that are a little uncertain and not really movable. But as you said, with Banks, you can maybe put him inside. But even if you do that, then you still got to get this other right guard spot, and they're expensive. And so maybe you can get the 13. If Greer's serious, you get the 13, you get a tackle, and then the second round you can get a guard, or maybe you get. The thing is, for me, I don't trust him with offensive linemen. He doesn't really have a good history or acumen, it seems like. So if you went Janty, then what do you go in the second round to find your tackle? I mean, we did with Paul. Maybe that's a play, but I don't know. So you like Brewer a ton, and I just don't think he moves guys. I love him on the move. I think sometimes he gets attached inside on stunts, and he leaves the middle open. I think sometimes he doesn't locate the situation. He bites too hard inside. I think he's unbelievable at the second level, and I think he's a great character guy. But if we're going to stick with Brewer, we need to support him with size and ability. We've got to run inside, especially with Jalen Wright, who's an A and B gap runner. So I'm seeing the soup is a little bit, it's hard to, because you got to add, rebuild, jive, and then if you keep going with what we're running, is lots of outside runs, outside zone, and we can't really get the cutback. And if you get the cutback, that makes it unbelievable. But we can't get that because down the line is breakage. So how do you like Banks? We're going to have to go with Jackson. You think that we're probably going to maybe try to make some kind of play for Toronto. We got Paul. Where are we finding the rest of this unit? Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.